First thing we need to do is go in and disconnect the E14. All right, there's a little connection here. It's tucked away. And we need to disconnect that so that we can remove the wheel. It's a tight fit. As you can see, it comes apart. Now we've freed this up. We're going to release the quick release over here. We're going to open that up. Open this up. Okay. I'm going to unthread, and I'm actually going to just pull this through and remove it.
Cool. Sometimes you get to do things that are on.
I'm going to set that up on my bench. These are slotted. I'm going to drop the wheel. It's under spring tension here, but I find it easier to just remove the little wheel and then release the spring, and then I'll reattach the spring upon reassembly. Back in. I'm going to unthread the nut here. I have a valve core remover that I like to use. So let the air out of the tire. Set that to the side. I'm going to break the bead. Loosen things up on one side. If I don't have to remove the tire, I won't. But I need to break one side of the bead free. So I'm going to see if I can do it by hand and not use a tire lever. Sometimes you can work the tire to the center of the rim and create some slack. Takes some strength, but this way you don't damage the tube by putting any tire liners in there, tire levers. I've broken that free by hand without any tools. However, if you can't do that, you would need some sort of a tool like a tire lever that you could pry under there and go around and break the bead of the tire free. We're going to go get our Tannus tire liner. We have some different models, different tires, but we're going to be looking for a 27.5 by 1.95 to 2.5, and this is what we need right here. All right, so we have our liner here. The way they're packaged is not always user-friendly, so you got to just kind of bend it a little and get it in place. If you have time and you can leave it out of the package for a while and get it to stretch, that's always helpful, but in this case we're just going to go with it. All right, we've got one side of the tire already secure still, so we're going to start by inserting the tire liner. In some cases, it may be necessary to trim a little on the edge, but in this particular instance, we don't have to do that. It is indicated on the packaging if that's something that's required based on the size of your tire. Okay, so we've got the liner in there, but what I like to do is feel around with my fingers and make sure that it's all seated nicely inside the tire. I can go around and inspect it, and it all looks good. All right, now we're going to put the tube in. I'm going to put my valve back in. In this case, I have a compressor. I'm just going to give a little shape to this, not very much. Now we're going to insert the tube through the opening like that. Okay. I'm going to lift my Tannus liner up, and I'm going to start to tuck this in gently and evenly. Just take my time. I want it to go in smooth. Kind of work back and forth from the left to right. All right. Pause. Okay, at this point, even though I gave some shape to my tube, I may let just a little bit of air out to make it a little easier to finish installing the tire. So I may just take a little flathead, just depress a little bit of air out of it. Now that I have it in there evenly, I'm going to go around and make sure that the second part of my Tannus liner is falling into place, nice and smooth. You want to make sure not to pinch the tube. Okay, so we should have a nice, even, smooth insertion. You may have a little pop out because of the shape, but you have to fight it a little. That's normal. Now I'm going to put the bead of the tire on. I'm going to start, I like to start by the valve and work away from me. I may need to tuck it in a little bit. This is where it becomes difficult at the very end to get the bead of the tire over. If I can avoid using tire levers, I will. If I can do it by hand, I'll certainly try that method first. Of course, with a Tannus liner in there, I'm taking up a lot more volume. If I can break some of my thing free, make sure everything's tucked in there. I will try to do it by hand first. There it is, by hand. If you can do it by hand, that's the best method because you risk not pinch flatting the tube. Again, if you're in a real jam, you can use a tire lever, but you have to be careful not to pinch the tube. All right, at this stage of the game, we're going to add a little air. Start to put my nut back on there.
The tip of the day is the trash can, right?
The trash can, it makes a handy work stand. It seems to be the right size, right shape, and right height. And so if you don't have anything else, I always fall back on the old trash can. All right. We're going to add a little bit of air, but we're not going to fill it entirely. I'm going to put, maybe 15 to 20 pounds. And before I finish filling it, I want to go around and inspect the bead of my tire on both sides. I want to make sure that it's inflating evenly and I don't have any low spots. One way to tell is there's a little line that goes all the way around, all right? And so I'm going to inspect both sides. So far, everything seems to be pretty even. I might have a little low spot here, but by adding some air, it should pop out. You can inflate tires to different air pressures. In this case, we're going to air this one up to about 45 psi, okay? I'm at about 30 right now. I want to inspect one more time. I like to be very thorough with that. Looks good. I'm going to flip it over, inspect. Okay. Just tighten that nut down a little more, and then I'm just going to put the final bit of air. I'm going to do about 45 because we're going to be on a harder surface. This is a mountain bike tire. We can run a much lower tire pressure, but for today's exercise, we're going to start here and then take the pressure down as needed. A tire like this is usually, with an inner tube, is usually going to be between 30 to 50 PSI. Although the manufacturer, depending on the tire in question, they're going to tell you on the side of the tire, all right? And actually, this one is 38 PSI, so we're a little on the high side for this, so good thing we looked.
For plus size riders.
For plus size riders, I recommend staying on the higher end. Because of the additional weight, you don't want to pinch the tube. Of course, we have a Tannus liner in here, but we still can pinch the tube. So I would recommend a little on the higher side of air pressure. So we're going to make it an adjustment here, okay? Actually can hook this up and let some air out. So there we are, we're at about 38. All right, we'll start there. All right, so we need to get the wheel back in. I'll bring it up under here. We have the tension off the belt. It's one of those things you gotta find. You gotta be careful not to bend or twist the belt. So you may have to turn it slightly to get it on there, which we have. Just got to line it up correctly, which we've done. We've got to watch our braking rotor, get it between the pads. A little tension over here. We also have to line up our roll-off hub on the other side. We also need to line up the roll-off hub here, all right? And we need this slot to line up in here so that the wheel can go back up through. I'm actually using my knee to keep the tension here, and I'm going to get my skewer here, and I'm going to reinsert it on this side. All right, there is a little tensioner I'm going to get lined up. I'm going to thread this on. I'm going to make sure that it's good and tight. I'm folding the lever on the other side. All right, that's good and tight. The final step will be to drop the bike to the floor and make sure that this is seated correctly. It seems good now, but it's always good to double check. Got the wheel reinstalled here. Last step is we certainly need to reconnect the roll-off hub. So you can see there's two arrows, okay? We need to line those arrows up, and then we're gonna put our connection together, make sure it's nice and tight. There is a slight area in the back just to tuck that wire in so that it's up out of the way, nice and clean, and we're ready to go.
This is going to be a distance version of you doing the bike in the back.
There you go.
You got the cool angle when you put it.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah.
might be some of the new stuff for it too.
You're right, that was a stupid question for me to ask. You don't need a hole in it because the tube is on the inside.
Correct.
put that up in. Sure.